Atlas family, I am here with my good friend, Dacey. Jay, great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
We were just talking about the unbelievable, incredible opportunity there is with $37 trillion in equity in American households, and talking about the fact that Jay has 4 loans in his pipeline right now that are either cash out or HELOCs, somehow trying to access that equity. And we just started talking about the unbelievable amount of equity that are in US households. And I showed Jay this slide that I got from Barry over at MBS Highway. I thought we'd frame this conversation up and the opportunity ahead by taking a look at it. Basically, what it shows you is there's 91 million households in the United States, $37 trillion in equity. Of that, 35 million homes are owned free and clear. That's $20 trillion in equity. And then there's 56 million homes that have a mortgage on them. That's 17 trillion equity. So you add those together, and that's where you come up with the $37 trillion in equity. But check this out. This is the punchline. Of the mortgaged homes, the average homeowner equity is $311,000. Of the free and clear homes, the average equity is $571,000. So if you think about the average owner of a mortgaged home having $311,000 in equity, that's a lot of $100 bills hiding behind the sheetrock of your clients' homes. And then Jay is finding a way to get some of those dollars out of the sheetrock. So Jay, with that setting, how did you get these clients? What types of loans are you using with them? What's the strategy you're employing?
Yeah, let's break down each one. So the first one is a repeat client. They've been in their home for 6 or 7 months. So they built a new construction home. So one level living, did not finish the basement, the only home in the development without a finished basement. And they put like 35% down. So they put a big chunk of equity down. And after living there for 6 months, they realized like everybody else's basements are finished, we should too. So
we need a basement.
And with the 12-month cash out seasoning requirement, we kind of said, well, we can't really do a cash out refi, but the timing of when they closed on their purchase relative to today's rate. So what we wound up doing is breaking it into 2 loans. So we're closing next week on a rate and term refi. It's going to save them like $200 a month compared to last fall. And then after that loan funds, we're going to set up a figure home equity line of credit for the $70,000 to finish the basement. So that was one example of just a recent purchase. They put a bunch of money down. They didn't want the builder to finish it for them. They wanted to do it themselves. So that's one example.
I think that's brilliant. And I want to pause there for a second, because if they were just saving $200, it might not be enough motivation for them to do a refinance, right? I'll wait for it, Jay. But if you can bundle the fact that you're going to reduce the rate, even if it's not a full percent, but you're going to get it down a little, create a little bit of savings, and then we'll just piggyback on top of that the cash that you need, you've essentially satiated 2 needs and you get 2 transactions out of it. So that's something I honestly had not thought of, Jay, is to piggyback the person who says the rate and term's not quite worth it. Okay, but do you need cash at the same time? And maybe that's enough to put them over the edge.
Yeah, and so you can, are you familiar with Property Radar?
No.
Okay, so Property Radar is a third-party service that you can subscribe to. It's like $100 a month, so not a big expense, but you can look at when loans were done, when homes were built. So you can pull some public data through this subscription that would show you, if you like really love what I just said about that particular client, there's a service where you can probably find a good list of people that built with Pulte, Lennar, like a big public company that didn't finish their basement, that was paying over 7% or over 7.5%. So you can run filters and create a targeted list if you want to do that on your own.
Genius. That's worth the price of admission right there. Thanks, Jay.
Yeah. The next one up is, again, past client. They've been in their house for nearly 15 years. And they've had some ups and downs in the job market. And so they had accumulated some debt during unemployment. And being in their home for 15 years, they're part of that $17 trillion club. And so they decided to take a little pause in their finances and reset. And so we're consolidating some credit card debt, getting a little bit of cash out to fix up some things around the house, and then paying off the wife's van. And so we're resetting the clock on a 30-year term, but they're comfortable with that. And I think we're saving like $900 a month in their overall big picture, like macro budget. Every month they're going to wake up owing $900 less a month to the banks.
So good. And did that $900 encompass the savings they got from paying off the van?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you get back in communication with that client? Like, how did you get reoriented towards that current need they have?
Yeah, so we do the monthly snail mail piece that we've talked about before. So I'm in their inbox once a month with HomeBot, and in their mailbox once a month with what I'm up to, what the business is looking like, et cetera. And so, they open up the mailbox. It's like, oh yeah, I'm starting a new job Monday. We should try and figure out finances now that I've got stable employment. And they called me and just said, hey, like I've got time this week to chat. I want to get something figured out. My first pay stub's coming in 2 weeks, and so we're closing that one next week as well.
Great. It pays to stay in communication with your database.
100%. That's what
Love it. Love it.
Next one was a kind of a unique thing. It's going to be a couple loans as well. So we had a client that was referred to us who was doing a 1031 exchange.
Mm-hmm.
So we had done a TBD approval for him. And then the property he ultimately found, he had enough carry forward from the sale to basically pay cash for the property he identified. But that home is going to need about $75,000 to $100,000 in fix-up money that he doesn't have laying around. So he just closed, paid cash as part of a 1031 exchange. Now we're doing a short-term HELOC. And his plan is for this one is to buy it, fix it up, and then flip it.
It's great. So you're doing a cash out HELOC in first position on an investment property. Yep. What's your outlet for that loan? Because there's not a lot of places who will do those.
Yeah, that's Figure as well.
It's great.
Actually, I'm sorry. That one's UWM.
UWM. Okay. Great. Love that product.
And then simultaneously, he picked up another property. He still had some money left over that was with the exchange company that needed to be spent too. So he's under contract to do another purchase closing early March with some of that 1031 money that didn't get spent on the cash purchase.
How many transactions have you done for him, by the way?
These will be the first two for him, actually.
First two. Okay.
Yeah, I was connected with him last fall through the realtor that helped him pick up one of the properties. And he just said, hey, he had a bad experience with his previous lender. And when they got to the finish line, it was just like, hey, if you don't want to deal with like what you've been dealing with, call Jay for your next one. And so I just kept in touch once a month, said, what's going on? What's going on? And he's like, hey, I'm really sick of this one rental property. It's just a problem, bad tenants, bad location, et cetera. I'm going to sell it in the spring or over the winter and then do a 1031 exchange. So that's how we got to where we are today.
The first 10 years of my career, I was almost exclusively working with real estate investors because I was a big real estate investor and those were the people that I wanted to help. And my number one source of business for real estate investors was going to asset protection attorneys. So attorneys that either do what's called landlord-tenant law, that evict bad tenants because of non-payment, and they do the eviction process. Great referral sources. And many times those landlord-tenant laws also either do estate planning and entity structure, asset protection, or they're partners within their firm. So if you want to grow your business with real estate investors, that's a great place to start, especially if you're a real estate investor and you have some, kind of some insider knowledge in that area. Yeah,
I just jotted that down myself for another future idea to pursue new business. I'd never heard of that before.
Yeah, great pillars. And what's interesting about real estate investors, as you know, is there's never one deal. Like if you have a perfect loan process and you do a good job, there's literally a client, they're called Jeff and Lynn Marchant, that I did over 57 transactions for over a period of 10 years. And I can't even tell you how many people they referred me through that period of time. So I love real estate investors. Great clients. Yeah.
It's great. And then the last one was somebody that we helped purchase their house last summer. And again, she didn't take our advice up front, put all of her cash as a down payment. We said, like, leave some in the cookie jar. But she put everything down, and then lo and behold, like the furnace went out this fall. That racked up a little bit of credit card accumulated, and then had a car payment too. That was like a super short term. That was a brand new car, so it was kind of an opportunity to consolidate everything. And it was only like a $35,000 HELOC, so not a big revenue generator for us, but we were able to save her like $300 a month on just that small of a loan amount. So pretty cool opportunity to help her out.
Yeah. Consumer debt's at an all-time high. Inflation has eroded people's buying power and diluted their budgets. And now Americans are sitting on $37 trillion in equity. So what I know about you is you're a master with your past client database and staying in communication with them, getting repeat business and getting referrals for them. So maybe the takeaway here, Jay, and I'll leave this to you to close this out, but if someone hasn't been as masterful as you have in your past client database and cultivating deep relationships with those clients, where would be the starting point if someone realized this opportunity but didn't really know how to get in communication with their past clients? What would you recommend they do?
I would say just do it. I mean, everybody should have everybody should have their database, but if they don't, so like 12 years ago probably is when I got started on truly marketing my database consistently, and I just took my wife and I's Christmas card list at that point in time. So if you don't have a database, just use your Christmas card list, assuming you have one of those, or if you recently got your wedding invitation list, and just start with that. And then if you don't want to wait for those people in your database to kind of come out of the woodwork, then Property Radar, which I mentioned earlier on the call, that's a really cool resource to scrape big data. And you can go not just cash outs, but VA loans over 7.25% originated at least 8 months ago, so you meet the season requirements. So like there's all sorts of data you can manipulate and purchase from them to get your own list created. It's going to be a cold list, but a highly targeted one.
It's great. I love that. So you're sending HomeBot, you're sending a snail mail piece that I know you write.
Yep.
And what about calling them, setting strike rates? What's your practice around getting in communication with them that way?
Yeah, I'll send them an email just saying, like, here's a link to my calendar, book a call for 15 minutes. I want to get your strike rate set up. Here's what that means. And then just if I continue to ask for that conversation until they say yes. Most people, when they hear they can save money, interest rates are coming down, they don't really hesitate too much. So if somebody doesn't do it after 2 or 3, then I'll call and be like, hey, what's going on? You're paying 7.625%. All of my other clients that closed when you did already refinanced once and are about to refinance a second time. Like, we should really have this conversation. It's important to you and your family. And if $400 a month doesn't mean much to you, just start sending me the $400 a month. It's like, why would you not take this call? So for the most part, we have pretty good luck.
You're giving them financial stupid guilt. Like, you're the only client who hasn't done it yet.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good, man. That's so good. I know some people who haven't managed their past client database have guilt around the fact that they haven't called their clients in a year or 2 years. Any suggestions to them on how to get over that or to break through that?
They haven't thought about you as much as you think they might. They're not, like when I'm lying in bed at night, I'm not like, why hasn't my mechanic that, switched my tires out last summer, why hasn't he called me? It's like people are wondering why we haven't called them if we haven't called them. But when they do hear from us, it's like, oh, wow, that was really thoughtful. I haven't talked to that guy in 3 years. So don't let that be a hindrance to making the calls because they haven't thought about it.
That's such a great analogy. If your guy who put your winter tires on last year called you in the fall the next year and said, hey, Jay, it's time to put your winter tires on, you wouldn't be pissed that he hadn't called you since last winter.
I don't know.
That's great. Jay, this was super, super informative. I think the moral of the story is there is gold in our past client database. There's gold out there with people that have a lot of equity. Get educated on these cash out and home equity line products and get out there and help some people.
That's it.
Right on, Jay. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your valuable time. This was really fun, and I loved hearing about all your clients and everything you're doing for them.
Thanks for having me.